So just last week, we had a 4,700 mile 1997 Toyota Land Cruiser on Bring a Trailer. Well, apparently that was just too high mileage for a millennia era SUV. So now we have a 1,200 mile 2002 Mercedes G500. Seriously, what's next, Bring a Trailer? Like I said, I was still recovering from having my mind blown by the 4,700 mile Toyota Land Cruiser that sold last week for $165,000. So when I saw this 2002 Mercedes G500 with only 1,200 miles, I knew we had to review it. But before we launch into today's example, if you're new to the channel, I'm Trey and this is Vintage 4-Wheel Auctions. We vet all the active truck and 4x4 category auctions on Bring a Trailer and highlight only the top tier of vehicles from this segment. So if you're in the vintage SUV market, you want to keep an eye on these auctions. With each video, our objective is to discuss and show you what to look for in a vintage SUV and what to avoid. Our hope is this simple format encourages interaction with viewers on vehicle condition and ending price points. So starting today, we have a 2002 Mercedes G500. As I already mentioned, this one has an absurd 1,200 miles since new. It has a 5.0 liter V8 with a 5-speed automatic transmission, and it's finished in black paint over black leather upholstery. This one's located in Thousand Oaks, California, and is listed by a very well-known and regarded weekly seller with a whopping 928 listings under their belt. I frequently find myself admiring WOB's auctions. They typically are best-in-class auctions with some of the most rare cars and outstanding pictures. Most recently, I was following the sale of a 1982 Toyota FJ40 that sold for $75,000 on July 1st. Man, was that thing sexy. We've got 5 days left on this auction. There are 8 bids to $50,000, and currently there are 22 comments on the auction. With the unicorn status of this 1,200 mile 02 Mercedes G500, I predict we'll have an all-time high price for an early MBUSA import, but I'll get more into that with the pros, cons, and pricing. Before we jump into the pros and cons of this 2002 Mercedes G500, let's review the history of the G-Wagon in the United States. This car traces its roots all the way back to 1973. In that year, the first prototype for the G-Wagon was created out of wood. The G-Wagon was split in 2 different lines, civilian and military use. Obviously, for this video, we'll focus primarily on the civilian production, but there is some interesting military history here with this Mercedes model. Fast forward to 1979, the first civilian G-Wagons were all hand-built in Graz, Austria. They came in 3 different models, a 2-door, 3-door, and a 5-door model. It's often noted that one of the first orders for the G-Wagon military fleet came from the Shah of Iran, but the Islamic Revolution deposed him prior to receiving the order. Now, back to the civilian side of production, these vehicles were produced for rest of world, and very few gray market versions hit the US shores during the first 10 years of production. Another interesting bit of history for all you automotive history lovers. In 1980, the Vatican commissioned a 4-door 230G with a clear chamber the Pope could stand to greet and bless admirers. This was reputed to be the first Pope-mobile to feature the see-through bubble standing area. Over the years, the primary designations for the civilian G-Wagons were the W461, which was more Spartan and utilitarian. And then the more well-known W463 was produced from 1990 to 2018. This moved the G from the more Spartan build to a more luxurious version. The 463 came in a 2-door convertible short wheelbase, a 3-door short wheelbase, and a 5-door long wheelbase station wagon. It wasn't until 1993 that the iconic G-Wagon officially made its way to the US through Europa Imports in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'd actually been to the dealer and I found it very unassuming. That's until you hear about all the big name celebrities that bought their G-Wagons from them from 93 to 2001. At that time, Europa was the only dealer with official permission to import and federalize the G-Wagons in the US. With all the work that was done to bring these up to US standards, and the holy grail was the 50-state carb G-Wagon, these were extremely expensive to purchase. Many of them sold for over $100,000, which for the time was insanely expensive. What I thought was awesome about my visit to Europa was that they had more utilitarian W461s with cloth seats. They had early W463s and even 463 2-door cabriolets that are extremely rare to the day. This is the last 463 cab listed on Bring a Trailer. It went for big money. I actually owned a 97 Europa G320 finished in black on black that was originally owned by a well-known NFL player. It was literally the most over-engineered car I've ever had. Even though I've had other Mercedes, when you close the door on this thing, it sounded like closing 2 bank vault doors. It was a literal tank. Fast forward again, and in 2002, Mercedes decided that Europa shouldn't be the only one to cash in on the American luxury SUV market. They started importing the G500 V8 directly into its US dealer networks. So this 2002 G500 with only 1,200 miles is from the very first year MBUSA started importing, and it's still a more Spartan analog version of the G-Wagon. As we know, these have taken on a new life with luxurious appointments and technology over the years, so it's really exciting to see this early MBUSA model at Bring a Trailer. Let's look at the pros and cons of this 2002 Mercedes G500. First, with the pros, it's got 1,200 miles. End of story and scene. It has a clean CARFAX history, supposedly one owner since new. We'll make sure to review the CARFAX in further detail in the CARFAX evaluation section of our video. It's finished in a classy black exterior over black leather interior. And the undercarriage is so clean you would literally mistake it for a brand new car. A review of the cons. We'll review this with a fine-tooth comb when we look at the pictures, but after my first pass, I'm hard-pressed to find any flaws on this G500. The only negative I saw in the comments is a few people mentioned they would remove the Ray Catania dealer badge on the back. This is just how ridiculous this 1,200-mile G-Class is. We literally have to invent things that are wrong with it. So moving on to the CARFAX, this is a one-owner G-Wagon, and the CARFAX shows 60 miles per year since new with ownership in New Jersey the entire 20 years. By 2015, it had 944 miles, which is the majority of the current 1,200 miles. This is just crazy. Before we get into the pictures, we always review the comment section first. As I've said on previous shows, this is a best practice that can save you time when you're looking through the pictures because the Bring a Trailer audience has extensive knowledge on these marquee vehicles. As a result, they'll often call out areas of concern like rust, paint or mechanical abnormalities, or potential mechanical watchouts. First one that jumped out at me here was a question directed at the seller. Was this the same rig that was in Phoenix in January? The seller replies that yes, this was, but the sale did not complete. We got a real joker here with this comment. If this one has too high mileage for you guys, totally understand. I'm listing my 1.2 mile W463 next week. Stay tuned. Like that. This is what I was talking about earlier in the video. New owner, please pull the Ray Catania badge off immediately. Why all the shade? I don't know. I did find this one useful. This is the first year for the MBUSA imports. We did walk through the full history. There will certainly be critics comparing this to a later W463 with all the bells and whistles. For me, I actually prefer this analog version. This is the closest you're going to find to the Europa versions that were very analog, shipped in from 93 to 2001. I just love the utility of my 97 G320. He finishes his comment by saying the W463 and the FZJ80s were the last of the best. I concur. This one's also very helpful. Gives you a bit of the history of the vehicle. Yes, indeed, I know the original owner well. He had a small collection of low to no mileage cars and had all in a climate-controlled private garage in Holmdel, New Jersey. All of his cars were serviced regularly and lightly exercised on the weekend. So you get to know a little bit about how this ended up with 1,200 miles since new. Let's jump into the pictures. The idea is that I want to show you what I look for when I'm considering a purchase. So I know I've mentioned this before. It is a best practice to have at least 100 pictures for a Bring a Trailer auction. This one does not disappoint. WOB has 139 pictures of this 1,200 mile G500 Mercedes. Starting with this first picture, really clean picture of the front and profile. Until recently, the G-Wagon remained unchanged for over 40 years. That's pretty cool considering its boxiness and ruggedness. Picture 6, just really nice profile picture. Picture 8 just accentuates the sheer boxiness of this G500. You also catch the first glimpse of the Ray Catania badge on the left-hand corner. Not sure why these commenters were throwing shade on this. Who knows? Picture 12, you could just really see just how clean that paint is. It looks like new. Picture 13 is really good with the lighting. You could just really see this mirror finish. You see one of these out in the wild, and one of the ways you can differentiate a early model MBUSA import versus Europa is by these turn signals. I always like the look of the Europa model with the orange turn signal. Picture 21's got some great detail, just highlighting the luster of this black paint. And this is kind of what you would expect, not even a scratch or scuff on the bumper, but again, it's got 1,200 miles. Now picture 35, you can see just how over-engineered these doors are. When they close, they have a huge thud. You get a series of pictures showing the paint meter readings, showing the paint is like new. No wear or marking on the rims. This is to be expected. Stepping into the cabin of this G500 really reminds me of my G320. It just had this amazing smell to it with the leather. Is it just me, or do all Mercedes have a distinct smell to the leather? Picture 55, seats look like new. Nice bird's eye view here showing the clean dash. This reminds me of the driving experience in the G-Wagon. It's very unique. The front windshield is straight up and down. It's probably at an 85-degree angle. You literally feel like you're in a fish tank driving this thing. It's awesome. Wait a second. I think the seller should have disclosed this. He's technically 21 miles over 1,200 miles. I kid, this thing is insane. It's like buying a brand new 2002 model. Just jump back in your time traveling machine and here you go. The 2002 MBUSA version did see a V8 come standard. Prior to this, Europa did offer some other engine configurations like my 6-cylinder G320. The last few years were all V8s though. The other thing I liked about my G-Wagon was the airiness and openness, and also this sunroof. It's just got a great open feel. You can see in picture 103 that tank-like door. Now this is what I've been looking forward to. Picture 118 starts the series of undercarriage pictures. Now picture 120, this undercarriage looks factory new. This definitely was not used in any New Jersey winters. And rounding out the auction, picture 139, all factory books and records. Again, this is what you would expect from an essentially brand new car. The auction's currently at $50,000 with a full 5 days left. Taking a look at pricing for this 2002 Mercedes G500 with only 1,200 miles, I know categorically this is going to be a record setter. Not only that, the all-time high for an early MBUSA G500 is $66,000 for an 8,000-mile 2003 that sold in 2021. And of the 12 closed auctions in the last 2 years, the others are not even close. With this one, I also decided to go over to one of the forums to see what G-Wagon aficionados are saying. This commenter feels that it would be bid to $150,000, but it might not make the reserve. I feel like it's going to be more conservative than $150,000, but we did just see a 4,700-mile Toyota FZJ80 go for $165,000 just last week. I do agree, though, the reserve may not be met on this one. This vehicle apparently had been at Mecum or one of the other auction sites in Phoenix earlier this year and did not sell. What do you guys think about this 2002 Mercedes G500 auction? We would love to hear your feedback on pricing and condition in the comments. Also, we are a new channel, so if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Trust me, this and your comments go a long way to inspire the creation of future content. Thanks again for watching. See you next time for more vintage four-wheel drives.